So this week in NASCAR will be racing at Circuit of the Americas, and in case you haven't heard, 2009 F1 World Champion Jenson Button and 2007 World Champion Kimi Räikkönen will be racing in the Cup Series. Jenson is driving the number 15 for Rick Ware Racing, which is usually a backmarker team, but they will be having help preparing the car from Stewart-Haas Racing, so they'll still be a backmarker team. Kimi, on the other hand, will be driving the Project 91 car for Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse is a competitive team that could win at any track it goes to. The Project 91 car was an idea from team owner Justin Marks to give world-class international drivers a chance to try out NASCAR in a quality ride. This concept is something I've dreamed about for years, but unfortunately Justin had the money to make it a reality before I did. That being said, here's my list of drivers I'd like to see in the Project 91 car. The first driver on my list comes in at number 10 for one key reason. The 91 car is a Chevrolet, which is a direct competitor to Toyota. Kamui Kobayashi has been a Toyota driver for most of his career, and is now even the team principal of the Toyota Gazoo Racing team. However, within the last year, he has mentioned he would like to try out NASCAR, and being friends with Toyota president Akio Toyoda has allowed him to drive many non-Toyota brands. However, it may be asking too much to allow him to compete against a Toyota. If you've not heard of Johan Kristoffersson, that's a real shame. He's driven in touring cars, rallycross, and now Extreme E, and he's won at least one championship in each discipline. As a matter of fact, in rallycross he's won the championship in 5 consecutive years of participation, at one point winning 10 events in a row. His experience with low-grip dirt and heavier electric cars may make the transition to a NASCAR stock car a bit more natural than one would expect. And just maybe, with his off-road speciality, maybe he'd want to try the Bristol Dirt Race. Takuma Sato has not won a championship since his F3 days, but he is a 2-time and almost 4-time winner of the Indy 500. Since his time in the Americas, he's taken very well to the style of oval racing, plus I'm pretty sure he's never been afraid of anything on a racetrack. So I feel like he could be one of these drivers who would rather hop on an oval more than anything else. In 2022, he drove an IndyCar for Rick Ware Racing, and since he's only doing a part-time schedule this year, there has been some discussion to get him behind the wheel of the Rick Ware number 15 at some point. So maybe we'll see him on the track sometime soon. Elio Castroneves drove for Team Penske in IndyCar for almost 20 years, and throughout a lot of that time, he always had one eye on a NASCAR. There was a discussion of Elio doing the 2023 Daytona 500 with the Floyd Mayweather's The Money team, but ultimately ruled it out due to a lack of experience in both himself and the team. Since winning the Rolex 24, he's been trying to find a solid way into the Daytona 500, and some races in the Trackhouse 91 could be the perfect stepping stone to get him some valuable track experience. Shane Van Gisbergen is a Kiwi who is a 3-time champion of the Australian Supercar Series, and in 2022 he won 21 of that year's 34 rounds. At the end of the year, in an interview with Scott McLaughlin, he mentioned how he's interested in NASCAR, but not the ovals or not a full-length season. With the next-gen stock cars being much more similar to the car design being used in the Supercar series, the transition of SVG into the Project 91 car at a road course could be a very competitive combination. Scott Dixon is statistically one of the greatest IndyCar drivers of all time. In his long career with Chip Ganassi, he's tested a NASCAR once at Talladega, but revealed in a recent interview he would really like to try it out on a short track. Before being called Trackhouse, the team was Chip Ganassi Racing, so the connection already exists. Scott does say he's not sure if he could take on the challenge of going from IndyCar to NASCAR after speaking with his former teammates Jimmy Johnson and Dario Franchitti, who have driven both. But I think he could, and if he wants to try a short track, he should. But I also think it would be cool if he attempted the double with the Indy 500 and Coke 600 in the same day. So this is probably one of the few times this year Max Verstappen will not finish in the top 3, but I've got him 4th on my list. In a 2021 interview, Max expressed his interest in watching both NASCAR and IndyCar, but he wasn't interested in trying Indy due to the dangers of an oval. However, NASCAR ovals are slightly less lower risk, so maybe he would want to try that. Or maybe he'd like to drive a classic American-style road course like Watkins Glen, Road America, or Sonoma. Plus, family member Anthony Kumpen is a two-time NASCAR Euro champion, and Max's girlfriend's younger sister, Julia Piquet, is Trackhouse driver Daniel Suarez's girlfriend. So connections to the sport do exist. Either way, it'd probably increase the NASCAR viewer ratings by at least the population of the Netherlands. Now, before the final three on my list, I have a few drivers that didn't make it into my top 10 for various reasons, such as contractual issues or just not enough spots on the list. Nick Tandy grew up short track racing on ovals in the UK before he was a factory Porsche driver. He says he was a big fan of Bill Elliott and Rusty Wallace long before he knew what Le Mans or Formula One was. He drove a Corvette for a few years, so that probably would have been the perfect opportunity, but now he's back driving a Porsche for Team Penske in IMSA, so he probably would not be allowed to compete against Penske at Trackhouse. That same argument can be made for any of the IndyCar or sports car drivers from Team Penske, but maybe they could get an opportunity in at least the Xfinity Series if they played their cards right. Former Penske driver Simon Pagenaud has showed real interest in trying NASCAR. Since coming to the USA, he's perfected his oval racing craft from watching and taking notes. He's also played into his look-alike role from parody movie Talladega Nights. The only reason why he isn't on the top 10 of this list is because I decided to put Kamui instead. Pastor Maldonado is one of the most heroic stories in the last decade of Formula One, but on most days he had the tendency to remove the tires from his car. Fortunately, a NASCAR stock car is less fragile, so maybe he wouldn't be afraid to mix it up on track. Then my last honorable mention is a little out of the box. He's the son of Indonesia's franchise owner of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Sometimes during his F2 career he was accused of making some too aggressive moves. However, the stock car is stronger, so a driver who isn't afraid of rubbing on track and wears a bucket of chicken for a helmet may make Sean Gelael the new favorite son of NASCAR. The Triple Crown of Motorsports is one of racing's most prestigious unofficial awards. However, it doesn't have a gem from NASCAR. Fernando Alonso was working to collect his crown, and if he goes back to it, maybe he would like to dip his hand into stock car racing and try to add a whole new branch onto the achievement. Plus, he did a car swap with Jimmy Johnson in 2018 and really seemed to enjoy it. So let's paint the 91 in Kamoa and see where he wants to go, because that would make an international motorsports buzz. It is no secret that Daniel Ricciardo loves NASCAR racing. He picked his number after Dale Earnhardt's. He drove his '84 Monte Carlo as a reward after winning for McLaren. With his fandom of classic NASCAR, I could see him wanting to drive in an iconic event like Talladega, Daytona, or Darlington. Plus, he's not doing anything this year besides trying to give Max food poisoning, so he's free. Let's give him a call. Finally, and probably to no one's surprise, top of the list is Lewis Hamilton. He's the perfect example of the type of person Justin Marks was trying to attract with the Project 91 car. He's statistically one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. He's friends with Jeff Gordon, and he did a car swap with Tony Stewart at Watkins Glen in 2011. He really enjoyed his time behind the wheel back then, and yes, the cars are much different now, but I imagine he would still like to give it a try. Plus, Lewis did once joke that he would have to drive NASCAR at some point in his career because if they ever made a sequel to Talladega Nights, he wanted to play the bad guy. But what do you think about my list? Are the choices good? Are the reasons good? The order doesn't matter so much, but who would you put on your list? And are there any drivers internationally that have a big interest in NASCAR that I've just forgotten? But let me know what you think, and until then, I'll see you next time on Driver Profiles.